Be proud of what we do. We are the most highly paid people in the world. Salespeople are the most highly paid people in the world.
Hmm.
More as a group, more than doctors, lawyers, you name it. People who are selling make the most money of anybody in the world. And why is that? Because we're worth it. If we do it well, we are worth it. So learn to do it well and be worth it and have fun.
Help, and many of them start using this information, and they will probably close a deal right after listening to this, which happens, right? We don't come to know about it, but
It's personal. P2P means person to person. And when you connect personally and you gain rapport and you gain trust, you'll be wildly successful in sales.
hi guys, this is your host and friend Ashish Janyani representing this wherever you watch this on our social media channel. This channel is built for entrepreneurs and sales professionals, amongst other businesses, which include family businesses as well. So, if you belong to one of these categories or you aspire to be an entrepreneur in the future, you're on the right channel where we speak primarily about sales, and we bring to you some of the best sales professionals on this planet. And it's my privilege to be a bridge between you and them as a host and ask them questions that I believe may help you on your sales journey. So stay tuned for our guest today. This man is a sales and communication expert, speaker, author, and a lifelong charity fundraiser. What about that? His sales expertise is born from a varied background. His discipline comes courtesy of the United States Navy's Presidential Honor Guard, where he served under President Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. His heart comes from his lifelong devotion charity work. Frank, that's what his name is, okay, was the longest sitting national president for the Coolies Anemia Foundation. His sales leadership expertise was developed during his long tenure as a VP of sales with CBS, an office automation company. Frank took his NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming education at the NY Institute for NLP and earned his practitioner degree in that communication in communication science. Frank, well, more things to him. He's been speaking and training professionally for over 15 years, winning accolades from notable companies as DLL Bank, GE, Xerox, and K. Hovanian. His book, B2B is really P2P, which is what we'll be speaking about today. How to Win with High Touch in a High Tech World just came out in January of 2021. Frank lives in New Jersey with his longtime love, Deborah, and when he isn't occupied with one of his businesses, he's either out running with his dog or in the kitchen cooking for his kids and grandkids. Help me welcome Frank Soma on our channel, Ashish Janyani. Hey Frank, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Ashish, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure having you. All right, I'm looking forward to this, talking about your book and making it an awesome time together. So, are you ready? Can we get started?
I'm born ready, my friend.
There you go. All right. So let's get started, Frank. I want to start with this question, and then we come primarily to your book, which is what I want to speak about. If you had to speak about sales, your whole experience dealing with companies and individuals, and you're speaking to entrepreneurs today, what does sale mean to you? What have you understood about sales?
Sales is terribly misunderstood today. The problem that we have is that the media has depicted salespeople as this group of folks that are out for their own gain at any cost. And you see this in these silly movies like Tommy Boy and Tin Men and all this stuff. And it's become kind of, a cultural phenomenon, dating way back to talking about snake oil salesmen. But salespeople, as I know them today, real professionals, their job is to understand what it is that the client needs. They ask a lot of questions and gather information. And in that process, we come to a conclusion that gives a great product or service for the client's well being as well as our own business increase. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be
So,
about solving problems and asking people what they need and having the confidence and the wherewithal to walk away if you're not the right fit. It's not
hmm,
jam it on and sell all at all costs because listen, we both know, Ashish, it's much harder to find a new client than it is to continue to sell someone who knows and loves you. So if in fact you do the right thing and you take care of folks, they will keep coming back and doing business with you, and you'll be playing the long game and have a good long career, as opposed to having to reinvent it every minute with a brand new sale that's somebody that you're going to bang over the head for too much money and then they never come back again.
yeah, that's so true. And we speak about it. I in fact want to take a step back and talk about snake oil selling. Let's take people back to history. Where did this whole thing about snake oil selling came upon? When was this concept born, or how have you seen kind of it come through generations, because it still exists with a lot of people? I believe it's a lot of lack of education that people have about sales, and there are a lot of people doing snake selling. But let's go back to history. Where do you think it kind of got started?
Well, I mean, this is goes back, in to time, that from forever. I think there were always people who were unscrupulous, but the idea of snake oil was back in the Wild West in America, where these guys used to sell these potions and oils traveling around on from town to town in these wagons and sell things that were purported to do something miraculous, cure disease or make you healthier. And it wasn't. And that's the same today. Watch infomercials at 2 o'clock in the morning and people are selling you things that, buy this little thing and you'll have ripped
Hmm.
abs for the beach this summer. No, you won't. You're still eating peanut butter sandwiches. It's not true. But so it's about being unscrupulous. And I believe that, those of us that are real professionals have so much working against us because of this notion that we have to be very, very conscious of asking good questions, listening very well, drawing out the client, letting them speak their mind and tell you about what they need. Um, because becoming, to me as a professional, like my book says, B2B is P2P, it's personal. P2P means person to person. And when you connect personally and you gain rapport and you gain trust, you'll be wildly successful in sales. Most people buy when risk is mitigated. If they feel that there's risk
Hmm.
involved, they won't make the transaction. When you remove the risk, of course they'll do it because now it's safe to do it and it makes sense. So how do you mitigate
Hmm.
risk? By creating trust. And how do you create trust? By listening, right? And gaining rapport.
Yes. Yes. So can you, Frank, give an example from your personal life? It may be as a coach or otherwise when you were working as a VP, where you actually followed this process and you got the result, uh, which was an outcome that you were looking at, or maybe better, because I think that will help the audience on a practical perspective to understand how to put it into practice. So if we can get some details about how did you go with the
Mhm.
process of selling.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them, but I meet people in various walks of life. So I have a client that I met when I had the copier company, right? So I met this person through charity work.
Hmm.
So I was working on a charitable project, and we happened to meet during that time. And when we met, we spoke about each other's charitable endeavors and nothing more. We both knew each other from the charity. Subsequent to that, I came to learn that this person owned a personnel company, and he came to learn that I was a partner in a copier company. So we began doing business together. And during that process, I wasn't trying to make a bunch of money. I was buying his services, he was buying my services because we liked one another. And why did we like one another? Because we met raising money for charity. We both went to the charitable meetings not to meet other people necessarily. That wasn't our primary objective. Our primary objective was to get the project off the ground for the charity. But the subsequent objective,
Hmm.
the subsequent happenings were that we both wound up gaining business. After that, he introduced me to a huge charity in New York City that was not getting good service and not getting good care on their current printers. And I did a deal for over 80 copiers and printers with that company, which is a
Wow.
huge deal, through this guy's introduction because he knew me and liked me outside of the selling environment. So I think what I'm trying to say is that it's very important that you cultivate great relationships, that you understand what else people are doing and what else is going on around them. I have in my CRM, I have something called Frankie's Fabulous 14, and it's
Hmm.
14 pieces of information that I want to know about my client, like the name of your significant other, or if you have children or grandchildren, do I know them? Do I know how many? Do I know their approximate ages? Do you have a pet? When Ashish, if I call you and I know that you love
Hmm.
your dog, and I
Hmm.
and I and your dog's name is Snoopy, and I call you, and the first thing we talk about, I'm like, Ashish, how are you? Good, good. So what's going on with Snoopy? You guys going to the park? You running together still? Oh yeah, we had a good run yesterday. Well, isn't that a very different conversation than me calling you
Yes.
and specifically asking you about the product? And the thing about this is it's got to be genuine. You've got to really like people and be sincerely interested in people, and that will come across. If you're just doing it, to check in and try to be personal when you're really not, that people will see that too. It's a veneer that gets cracked in an instant. You've got to be sincere, you've got to be interested, and you've got to be willing to take the time to listen to folks and get to know them better. And I promise you, if you're selling, this will pay you huge dividends down the road and you'll enjoy it more.
Hmm. Why are people not sincere? You know, a lot of people know that it works, it is important, that's the way to do it. And then so many salespeople that, we meet, they're always in a rush. They just
Mm-hmm.
want to close the deal. And some of them who know this concept, they use it, but they don't use it genuinely. Like,
Right.
Frank, why is it like that? Why are people not sincere even after knowing about this?
Why do people rob banks? Why do people rob stores? Why do people call on old people and pretend they're from Social Security and then rob their bank accounts? Why do people steal identities and charge things on your credit card? I don't know. There are unscrupulous people in the world that weren't raised right. It's about having the moral fiber to do things right. And sometimes in sales, it's about not being trained properly, right? If you've got some old school
Hmm.
sales manager who still thinks we're living in the days of Glenn Ross and is
Yes.
whipping you to hit your quota and talking about how you can sneak one under and take advantage and press the price up and sell for 5 times retail and nobody will know the difference, and applauding that behavior, right? Somebody comes in with a deal that's 3 times the retail value and the management team applauds that. Well, then you've created a culture that increases that. And I think also an interesting thing is commission plans, right? So
Hmm.
if you're an entrepreneur, you're making money for your own bottom line. If you're working for someone, they're either paying you a percentage of the profit or a percentage of the revenue. And depending on the chasm between salary and commission, you may
Hmm.
be incentivized to price gouge. It may be that in your commission plan,
Yes.
the higher you sell it. So there's this implicit kind of order to charge more because you'll make more, and trying to find the balance of where that makes sense and are you giving good value for your services is the challenge in that.
Yeah. Without taking names, I'll just tell you about a couple companies in India. It's just ridiculous. And I think you mentioned an important point about leadership and culture of a
Mhm.
company. So I had a client, and these sales guys wanted to do really well. And we did about 10 trainings over a period of a year. And, they liked the stuff, but they were like, we can't really do this at our company. And I was like, why can't you? Because, I mean, it is stuff that we are talking about. It's genuine. It's calling people, building relationships, caring for them. So they told me this is how their sales quota works. When they walk in the morning, Frank, and it's still true at that company, and which is why I think I stopped approaching them for more trainings, because I felt, there's a lack of right leadership, which is outside our hands to change at the position we were working at. Uh, when they walk in at 10 in the morning, they get a new quota every single day. So if you've got 10 products, and let's say, a sales guy was speaking to a prospect for a product A, and you've been following up with that guy, and suddenly you get a mail the next day, today you have to sell product B. So now they expect their team to call the same customer and not sell product A, but offer product B, even if that person does not need it. And this is just one example of multiple places, in different variations that I have seen happen. And my heart goes out, to the sales guy who's learning wrong things. And I just don't understand what the leadership of that company is doing and how do these companies survive? Because I'm talking about big Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, they make
So,
money. I mean, the world is divided in a number of different ways. Have you ever seen these very high pressure sales environments for timeshares back years ago, right? So they invite you
yes.
to this casino. They say, we're going to give you $100 in casino chips, but you have to sit through a 2 hour presentation. Those people are trained to take you from start to finish within those 2 hours. And they're going to ask and push and pressure and ask and push and pressure. And it works. People cave. They cave in and they
Hmm.
buy. They may have buyer's remorse later. They might have a contract that locks them in and they can't get out of it. And that happens. It's a style of selling that some people feel works for them. That's not my client. The way I look at it is that's not my client. That's not who I train. That's not who I consult for. I
Hmm.
consult for people who understand the process the way that I lay it out. Like I said in my book, I consulted with 4 experts um, because I don't want it to be just what I think, right? I wanted to get, and these are some
Hmm.
super wealthy, successful people, and they endorse that same style. So the world has different kinds of people, right? There are people who believe that
Yes.
you should only eat vegetables, and there are people that believe in keto, and there are people that believe in Atkins, and there are people that are omnivores, and there are pescatarians, and if you talk to any one of them, they could tell you chapter and verse about why they're certain that their way is the best. And I think in selling, it's that way. And the world has started to evolve, I think, a little bit more to our way, yours and mine, where
Hmm.
it's more personal and more questioning. And I think part of that, Ashish, is because it used to be the salesperson showed up and gave you all of the information you needed so that you could make a decision. And the salesperson had the power because they had all the info.
Hmm.
Now, when the salesperson shows up, the client likely knows as much about that product and service as the salesperson does because
Hmm.
the internet was the great equalizer. You're no longer
Yes.
relied upon for information. So now, what's your place? If you're not bringing me information, what are you bringing me? You're bringing me experience and exquisite service. That's how you're
Hmm.
separating yourself from the crowd. There's value in bringing that
Yes.
great service. So, can I charge more for my service than company B does if I, in fact, provide a better service? Sure. What's more valuable to you? A brand new 2020 BMW Uber ride or a 1990 beater taxi cab? Which would you pay more to go from one point to another in Manhattan? I pay more for the Beamer, right? Sit in style, sit in
More
comfort. So if
BM.
it,
Yeah.
so is it worth then $10 more? For Frank, it is,
Yes.
but not for everybody.
Yes.
So you got to find your customer, right? If I'm going to charge a premium, I'm not telling you salespeople out there listening, I'm not telling you can't charge a premium for your services. I'm not telling you not to make profit. I'm not telling you not to get your value. What I'm saying is
Hmm.
provide a personal experience, relationship, create trust, and be worth what you charge. Don't try to like
Yes.
scam it, shove it down their throat, and run away.
Yeah. I think you bring a very important point about salespeople being, picking up their customers. And a lot of salespeople don't think like that. There is a right customer for you, for your
Right.
product, and for your style of working. And then there's a customer who's a good customer for somebody else. And you making those choices are so important for success over a long period of time if you're looking to be in this game for years. So, Frank, before we come to your book, which is what I want to speak about, I have this one very important question that I ask every sales expert, and I have to ask you.
Oh boy.
What do you believe is the value of a phone, a cell phone, or a landline today in today's world when you're talking to customers and meeting customers? Given the fact that we've just gone through a pandemic, like how would you rate these tools in today's world?
I number one, when you can do it as a face-to-face meeting, followed by a phone call, and in distant third place is email. Email
Hmm.
will get it off your desk, but it doesn't get it done. The phone is second because I can hear your voice inflection. If I'm good on the phone,
Hmm.
I can actually picture you. I'll close my eyes and picture you, and I'll listen to the tone and the pace of your speech, which is super important for me to
Hmm.
match and learn and understand. In person, I can at least see. I like, okay, so Ashish, we're looking at each other now. If you said something I went like this,
Hmm.
right? I'm pleased. You don't get that on the phone. And what I just
Yes.
did for you all out of listening and not watching is I just did an eyebrow pop. I lift my eyebrows. So when you're in person, if you're trained to be observant, and I teach this in my book and in my consulting practice, is you're looking at all of this stuff, the eye movement, the coloration that you see, where the breathing is, the body posture, all that stuff adds up. So face-to-face meeting is super valuable. Now let's
Hmm.
think about where we are today with Zoom. So super interesting. When you're in a Zoom meeting, the disadvantage is you don't really feel the energy of the other folks there, right? There's a human instinct
Yes.
ability to feel energy. So you're missing that. But there's an advantage to Zoom in a meeting with multiple people that a lot of folks don't realize. If there are 6 people in the meeting, Ashish, and I'm focused on you, you're my buyer. When someone else is talking, I can stare at you. You have no idea I'm staring at you. There's six
Yes.
people on the screen. I can focus exclusively on you and stare at you like a creep. If we were in person, you'd be like, what's wrong with this guy? He's staring at me. But on Zoom, I can lock on to that person and watch every nuance as someone else is
Hmm.
talking. Are they nodding their head up and down in agreement? Are they leaning slightly back in their chair like something was said that didn't appeal to them? Have they tilted their head in a thinking position? Did I lose that inner part of their eye because they were scrutinizing something and I lost that outer
Hmm.
canthus or inner canthus? Like I can stare at all that stuff, you know? So there is that advantage. But to round out your question completely, if you can meet someone in person, it is absolutely the number one the best way to create a good relationship and a good sale, followed by the telephone, or I'd say today, followed by Zoom, followed by telephone, and then
Hmm.
least effective of everything is email. Email is good for confirming what you spoke about, but it's a very difficult way to to sell, because A, we're inundated with it, and B, there's no tone, there's no inflection. You don't know how something is meant or said.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
a lot of salespeople today rely on email because it's quick and you can bang out 100 of them, in no time. But it's not my way of doing things. Do I use it? Absolutely. Do I have email sequences in my CRM? Sure, I do. And they're meant to be send it, see who the opens are, and then pick up the phone, right? Because I
Hmm.
want to talk to folks and feel them out.
Yeah, yeah. So important. All right. So I think what I was thinking was, and then we just come to your book now, but just
Please.
last point on that. When we send 100 emails, I think we feel productive that we've contacted 100 people, but it's also a lot of times a way to hide behind and not actually do the real thing, which is pick up that phone and interact with somebody. And that's probably because you've not yet had those right scripts, or you've not made enough calls to get that confidence and understand the effectiveness of it, because maybe you've not seen the world that way, because we have different people of different ages, right? So if you are 18 years old watching this and you were born in 2003, with technology, just kind of computers out there, so we understand. But that's why these interviews are done, so that you can understand what really works. And you still send the emails, but you need to understand the placement of those emails in your sales cycle. And that's where I think it's a good time to speak about your book, because we are talking about that personal touch, people to people, in the book that you have, Frank.
Yeah.
Why did you write this book? Why did you write it now? And if we can start with and then come towards what's there in the book.
So what compelled me to write it is an awful lot of questions from salespeople about how to proceed today. Like you said, people hide behind email. It feels productive, like you got a lot done, but they weren't succeeding. So I thought, what is it that the best people I've seen do really well? Like I quote an expert in the book who's a financial planner. He's got $2 billion under management. He was
Wow.
ranked by Forbes in the top 400 financial managers in the United States. Like asked him what the most important thing was in being successful in selling. He said, find other people who did it well and ask them how they did it and network like your life depends on it. So he didn't say understand the stock market. He didn't say understand the product. He didn't say, get a graduate degree from Harvard or Yale or Wharton School of Business. He said, reach out to other people, be personal about it. And time after time, every expert I interviewed said the same thing. And these are people that are substantially younger than me, as well as people my age and older. So
Mm,
it seemed to transverse generations, even though, like you say, we can use all these other tools. My concern was that people were using these tools instead of being personal. Remember, people do business with people they like, and people do business with people they trust. And if it's not for that, then you're dropping to the lowest common denominator, which is price. And you can be that
yeah.
person too. You can be the Amazon of the world and sell things for the absolute cheapest. People price shopping and they see this one is it, boom, and they click on the one that's the least. That's great. And if that's your business, God bless you. But you're not a salesperson.
Good point. All right. So then, if I were to read the book today, right,
Mhm.
as a person, let's divide them into three categories. Somebody just starting off, what can that person get out of the book? Somebody in the middle of their career and they've got some stuff in their head, right? So 10 years, 15 years of experience, and somebody who's done it all, who's got the numbers achieved, who's been
Right.
there, and the learning curve has kind of diluted. What can these three people take out from the book?
It's interesting. So I think the most senior person can find validation in many of the things they've done and they've learned. And it's nice to be reminded of things sometimes that you used to do and maybe you don't do anymore. I found that with seminars I've gone to, someone mentioned, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I used to do that all the time. I should go back to that. So I think it'll serve as a reminder. It'll also serve as validation for the way that they've done things. And if they're not inclined to write a book themselves, it's great to take this and say, hey, this guy thinks like me, read his book to somebody, just coming up. So they can use my words as theirs because I'm sure we'll have a lot in common. Somebody in the middle of their career, obviously you're continuing to grow
Hmm.
and you've lasted this long and you're looking to get to better yourself. And I always feel that any book or any seminar I go to, if I get one good idea out of it, I haven't wasted my time. And I've
Yes.
and I've gotten that, it's about looking for it. And I always get something usable from everything I pay attention to. And I'm a strong believer that as a professional salesperson, you need to continually educate yourself. I mean, Ashish, if you went to your doctor and
Hmm.
your doctor pulled out some leeches to bleed you, you'd wonder about the credibility of a doctor who's still working on technology from 1895.
Yes.
We expect our doctors to continue to read on what's happening today so that they can give us the current medication treatment advice. Yes. So it's
Hmm.
it's
Yes.
why would we not expect that out of ourselves as salespeople? So if you're in the middle of a career, you need to keep reading in your field. I'm reading Tiny Habits right now. You've got to find things that pertain to what you do and continue to read in your field. It should just be part of your everyday life, that you're continue to educate yourself and get better. And if you're just starting out, boy, do I want you to read this because I want to create more people that think like you and I think. And I want more people to
Yes.
understand that this is a very real and good and solid way to be successful, wildly successful, long-term in selling, and not get caught up in some of the hit and run cultures or some of the completely electronic mediums that, I can't tell you how many solicitations I get every day electronically that I just delete. I'm not even going to look at it. Like it's no, it doesn't.
It's
I
a
don't know
spam.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's spam, right? So I think I teach a lot in the book, and what I would love somebody just starting out is to just adopt the idea that be proud of what we do. We are the most highly paid people in the world. Salespeople are the most highly paid people in the world, more as a group, more than doctors, lawyers, you name it. People who are selling make the most money of anybody in the world. And why is that? Because we're worth it. If we do it well, we are worth it. So learn to do it well and be worth it and have fun.
Yes, there you go. So to end the interview, I've got final two questions for you. First
Sure.
is one tip that people can take from the book without reading it, which will encourage them to read the book. And you've given some insights, right, already. But if you had to boil it down to one tip for today, and the last bit would be, of course, where do they find you to get in touch with you? But I also want to inject that question because very few people have that, what you have, since I think the beginning of your career is charity. I mean, a lot of people pick it up later in life, but from what I read about you, you've been in charity for a long time.
Yeah.
And, as a salesperson, how much does that help you as, an individual when you have that mindset of giving back, early in your career? So these are my last two questions for you.
So, why don't we wrap it into one thing? And I'll say that first of all, the number one tip I can give anybody in sales is listen. If there were a chess clock on the table and you're with your client, and at the end it measures how much, we hit it every time we speak, and it measured how much I speak and my client speaks, it ought to be 45 minutes them and 15 minutes me at the end of the hour. So number one is learn how to ask good questions. Learn the reason that you don't use why and you use what and how instead. Learn how to encourage other folks to speak. Learn communication styles of other people, which I have a lot of that in my book, to understand how people communicate and how to draw them out. And I think that the biggest tip I could give anybody is get involved in charity. Listen, God did not give you this talent to persuade other people to your way of thinking in order for you to just line your pockets. Superman could have broke through walls and robbed banks, right? But he didn't. He helped people.
Yes.
Same thing. You have this amazing talent to persuade. You're a charismatic person. People listen to you. They'll follow you. They'll do what you say. Should you be doing that only to put money in your pockets? Think about all of the worthwhile organizations out there that could use somebody with your skills, and then use your skills for good. Do that. Hey, by the way, when you do that, business is going to come to you in handfuls.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's a good way to end it, Frank. Where do they find you if people wanted to get in touch?
FrankSomma.com, SOMMA, FrankSomma.com. Everything is there. My coaching practice, my speaking, and the book is available on Amazon, as is everything in the world, right?
Yeah. So especially if you struggle, engaging with people, interaction is a challenge for you, listening is a challenge for you. You missed that flight. You're born in 2000 and you've not seen the world before that. This is a very important book for you because it's not that you're the new world and there's a world that is gone by. Listen, the people who usually have money are at least about 30, 35, and then it can go up to, higher. You wanted to look from that perspective, though that's not the only way you should look at it. Think about your customer and how they like to be engaged. Maybe the world will be different 20 years from now, and we'll talk about it then. But Frank's got a book that B2B is not B2B, it's P2P, which is people to people. So pick that book up and get more value out of it. Frank, I really want to say thank you for making this happen, taking time out, and it's a pleasure.
And I'm really so grateful that you sought me out and asked me to come on here. That just feels really good. You've got a huge following and a wonderful program that you're doing, and to ask me to be a part of it, it really feels good. And I do appreciate being asked. Thank you.